But some industry experts say Canada still has some catching up to do.
I remember back in the day, we used to do shows in small nightclub or banquet halls, and now we're doing arenas, we're doing stadiums.
I'm Esther Medina, and this is Conversación. Today's guest is Ricky Taco, Director of Latin Music in Canada for Live Nation. His story is one of motivation and what it takes to be someone of value. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. It is so good to have you.
Thank you for the invite. Yeah.
Conversación. No, I've been really looking forward to this conversation, and I feel that, the world knows you as the director of Latin in Canada at Live Nation. But I want to take everyone back to your beginnings. What was your first job?
In the industry or like in general?
In life.
Actually, no one actually knows this. So this is a good question. So my first job, I was 13 years old. Obviously applied to a bunch of places. And I ended up getting a gig at the Salvation Army. I was actually, your coat hangers have when they're brand new, they come with little plastics, I guess. So it's go down to the basement, all the boxes, get a hanger, take the plastic off and put it in a different box. So that was my first ever job, probably making $6.85 an hour.
I was just about to ask you, I wonder what minimum wage was when you were 13.
$6.85, $7 an hour. Just to touch on that, at that time, my goal was when I grow up, I want to make $25 an hour. That was my goal. I was once I make it to $25 an hour, I'm I made it. You know what I mean? And things change.
Working at 13,
Yeah.
Was that something you wanted to do, or were your parents
No, I always wanted to get my own stuff. You know what I mean? I was ambitious, I guess. I'm still that kind of person, but I was always okay, so you're 16 when you get a car or when you get your G license or a G1. So if I work enough for the next 2-3 years, I'll get my own car. And that's exactly what I did. I had purchased my first car probably a month before I turned 16. And on my birthday, I went to get my G1.
So where does that hustle come from? Is it in the blood? Does it run in the family?
I think it's my dad. My dad, he used to be in the Navy back in Peru. So he was a Navy officer. He owned a side business, and he also owned a liquor store in Peru. So he owned a bunch of different things, plus his full-time gig. And yeah, just the fact that I saw him doing this, doing that, and then being able to buy certain things and taking us to different trips and whatnot. I'm I want to be that, you know what I mean? And yeah.
Are you an only child?
Yes.
I was you're either an oldest child or an only child.
I'm the only child.
Because there's a certain
as far as I know.
Were your parents the type of parents to do you feel they had a stereotypical you need to be a lawyer or a doctor, or did they kind of just let you do your thing?
Yes and no. So I was supposed to be a soccer player. My mom and my grandma and my grandparents, they're you don't really have to go to school because you're going to be a soccer player anyways. And my dad on the other side was no, you have to go to university, you have to do this, you have to do that, and whatever. By the time I was 17, 18, soccer was not my thing anymore. It wasn't competitive anymore, and I just wasn't into it. And at around when I was probably 19 is when I started doing nightclubs.
Let's talk about that. How did you get introduced into the nightclub scene? Was this in Toronto?
Yeah. Same scenario. I was ambitious, and my high school friend, he's still a DJ right now. We were probably 17, 18, and he was a DJ at nightclubs, 19 plus. So I'll go to a nightclub with him, and I'm who's paying you $200 to play music? Essentially, it's not you have exclusive music. Whatever you play, I can play it myself, you know what I mean? So I'm how do you make $200 in an hour or 2 hours, and you're 18 years old? And that's when I'm okay, there is a club owner, there is a promoter, and then there's DJs and MCs.
It's you're seeing the pyramid for the first time.
Yeah. And I'm okay, well, so that's the guy that pays you, and he makes money off of the door, and then the owner makes money off the bar. And I'm I can probably do this. And I'm you know what, let me talk to the owner. Because we used to go to a club every week. And I'm hey, how do we rent the place? And obviously, I've never done a party in my life. And he's well, I don't know you. I'll charge you, I think it was $4,500 rent. If you sell $10,000 at the bar, I'll give you your money back. But if not, I'll keep the 45. Because he's I got to make money. I got to pay my security. I got to pay. I'm all right, done. So I gave him $4,500. Again, I was working since I was 13, so I was able to pay the $4,500 rental. So I paid him the fee, printed flyers, and I went everywhere. Strip clubs, nightclubs, parking lots, movie theaters, just leaving flyers everywhere. So I just sent out flyers everywhere, and then we did 500 people, the first party, paying $10 a head. So do the math, right? Like 500 people, $10 a head is $5,000. Between my DJs and my flyers, probably $500. And I'm like, I just made like $4,000, $4,500. We sold $12,000 at the bar, so my rental was free because he gave me the money back.
Wow.
He's like, hey, you cover the number I wanted, so here's your money back. So I didn't pay for the club. I made $5,000 at the bar at the door, and I'm like, I just made $4,000. I'm 19 years old, and I'm like, I got to do this, and I just kept on doing it.
But also, this was Aladdin.
This was before
Aladdin night.
Facebook, before Instagram.
Yeah, like
before
how'd you get the money? Were people physically paying you? Like, here's my $10?
I would pay a girl to be the cash girl, because I would hide. Like I would be in the little office, and I'm like, I don't want to see anyone, because if they see me, they're gonna be like, yo, I know Ricky, let me in for free.
True.
So then I'm like, hey, yeah, make sure, like, you know. So I probably gave her like $50, $100 to handle the cash, and yeah, that was it.
That's incredible, because I feel like so much has changed since then. Like, this is how you started. So
That's
how
how I started.
long did that system work for you until things started to change, and what even changed?
I did it for 3 years. It was still working. It's just I didn't want to be at a nightclub, because I was at a club every week.
So you changed.
Yeah, I'm like, it's cool, but I don't drink. I do now. But back then, I'm like, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I don't do any of that. I don't dance. You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's good money, I like it, but I just don't want to be stuck at a club every week. And I'm like, how do we stay within the industry without having to be at a club every week? And then a friend of mine is like, hey, I'm doing a concert, Jerry Rivera, the salsa artist, but we need money. Can we partner up somehow, you and your friend or whoever? So we gave a little down payment, I guess you can say. That was the first concert ever, and it worked out back in 18 years ago, at Palazzo in Vaughan, Woodbridge. We sold every ticket, so we made money. And I'm like, okay, this is what I gotta do. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do concerts going forward. And my concerts are not every week. Probably do it every month, every 2 months. And that's how I went and started doing concerts.
So that's where the love of concerts was born. Interesting.
Yeah.
And this is, you said 15 years ago?
Yeah, 15, 18 years ago.
So that's like, okay, early 2010s, let's say. It's interesting to me because you've been at this. You've seen the ebbs and flow and like the growth or the lack thereof. Mm-hmm. Where do you feel like, specifically as it pertains to Canada, where did you notice the shift? Because, for example, I think that there's like two pivotal moments in the Latin entertainment industry, and one of them is the Macarena. Yeah. But then there's Despacito that comes out in 2017. Like, to me, that's a moment that stands out. Do you think that's like when the shift began?
I think that's when it went global, quote unquote. But I think I might have seen it earlier, at least locally. So when we first did, obviously, nightclubs, we were doing concerts at little small nightclubs, banquet halls. A friend of mine and myself, we did Wisin y Yandel probably 13, 14 years ago for the first time ever. And back then, like I was telling you, all the big Latin concerts were at banquet halls. And we took a swing and we did it at, what was it, the Powerade Center or the Hershey Center, one of those in Mississauga. It was like an arena, but in Brampton or Mississauga, right? And I think ever since that concert, another friend of mine did Daddy Yankee a few months later. And that's when we're like, okay, we're going from banquet halls to local arenas. And then obviously fast forward maybe another 5-10 years, that's when Despacito happened, and then everything just exploded. I
find this so interesting because I feel like I consider myself a normal pedestrian on this earth. So like I can't understand that process of going from like the club to the banquet hall and then the banquet hall to a stadium. Like when you explain that someone reached out to you, wanting you to do this at a banquet hall, like you used the skills you had to make that happen. So it's like, I guess, would you then say that you took your banquet hall skills to be able to take this to a stadium level? Like, how were you able to transfer that over? Because that's huge. That's a big jump. These are all big jumps.
It's just taking the swing. I mean, something that was never done. Just like the first party I ever did, I never did a party before. You know what I mean? Like I never did a club where I wasn't a promoter and then I became I wasn't like a guy that was helping a promoter and then I became my own promoter. It was just like, my friend was a DJ. I saw the fact that this is a business and you can make money off of it. I'm like, let me just try it out. And there was really, as far as I know, there was really only one promoter back then. It was Eddie Peña, who owns Nubo or Moda. I don't know which.
Oh my gosh.
So that was like, but he was doing like salsa, bachata, tropical stuff, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, well, reggaeton is like starting. Like this is like the first ever reggaeton songs. And I'm like, I'm not into, like I like salsa, but I'm not like hardcore into salsa. Plus I don't even dance. So I'm like, let me just try reggaeton and see what happens. The first party I ever did was hip hop meets reggaeton. Because I had, let's say, Jamaican DJs and Latin DJs that I knew. So I'm like, let's just see what happens. Maybe we'll bring a few non-Spanish and then maybe we'll bring some Spanish people. And it was probably 90% Spanish people. Because it was really like, it sounds bad if I say the first, but it could have been the first ever like reggaeton, party at a nightclub. And then it worked out and then, yeah. So just, this, going back to your question, it's just, I didn't know how to do it. I just did it.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Weren't you scared?
The day off, yes.
Not till the day off.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so then you're doing your thing. You're seeing that the concert thing is working. You're getting bigger venues.
Yeah.
Where does a Live Nation come into play? Because was that even on your mind? Was that even your goal?
No. So if you remember, let's say 10 years ago, we started seeing Jennifer Lopez, Pitbull, Enrique. It was like 2 or 3 Latin concerts done by Live Nation at Scotiabank or Air Canada Center back then. And that was like quote unquote Latin. So they would do Pitbull, let's say February, then they'll do Shakira in March, and then they'll do Enrique, Pitbull, and Ricky Martin late December. And then they actually used to call me. So I'll get a call once a year, maybe twice a year, like, hey Ricky, we're doing this. Can you help us out locally? Just, like, the newspapers people, the radio, this and that. Can you help us out? So we used to do that maybe twice a year. And we did it for maybe 5 years. So every time they'll call me, I'm like, okay, they're doing Pitbull, or they're doing Shakira, or they're doing this, right? But it wasn't considered a full-out Latin concert. Because, obviously J-Lo is not, she's Spanish, but she doesn't cater to that.
She's mainstream.
Yeah. Up until, I guess, 3 years ago, I got the call again. And I'm like, oh, there you go. They're bringing Shakira or Pitbull or one of those guys again. And they're like, hey, you still in Toronto? I'm like, yeah. I got a concert in the next couple of months, actually. And then he's like, okay, someone from Toronto is going to call you. Because I used to get the call from LA. So the office from LA would call me and they're like, hey, we're doing this. Can you help us out? And I thought, okay, maybe the check is going to come from Toronto instead of coming from LA. It would make sense, right? There's an office in Toronto, but they pay me from LA. Maybe this time they're going to just cash me out in Toronto. So I got a call from this random guy that I never heard of, who happens to be the president of Live Nation Canada, who's now my boss. He's like, hey, my name is Eric. I'd like to set up a meeting with you. And I thought, again, they're going to do Shakira, they're going to do J-Lo, or one of those guys. So I go to the meeting, and it wasn't a meeting. It was basically a job interview. And then, long story short, they're like, hey, we know what you've done. We're in the middle of booking an artist, and we want to actually open up a Latin division across Canada, and I feel like you're the right person to run it. And not only that, the artist that we want to book actually told us that if we're actually going to bring the artist to Toronto, that they should call Ricky in Toronto to handle it.
What?
And that's because I've already done, a bunch of concerts for the last, 10, 15 years. So they're like, the fact that they're calling us, telling me to, contact this guy named Ricky, and now we want to hire you, then it all makes sense. So then, yeah. So we met for like 2-3 hours. We talked about everything. Like, how did you do this concert by yourself? Or how did you get a hold of the artist? Or, like Spanish people need visas. Like, how did you do it? Like, how big is your team? And I'm like, it's just me. Me and like people that help me, but like my team per se is just myself. And yeah, so they called me and then I left the meeting and they were like, hey, check your email. Like I was actually leaving the office. Like, check your email. And then they sent me an offer right there and then.
This is a Netflix show. Someone make a documentary. That is incredible. And, I think that opportunities like this are possible. So I think it's just a reminder that if the opportunity is not there, it can be created for you. But I also think that takes someone with value. Like you had obviously proven yourself without even
exactly.
trying that you're a valuable person.
Yeah, because it's not like I was doing shows for me to get their attention. You know what I mean? It was just like I was doing my show because that's what I do and trying to do the best I can. And then I guess 10 years later, 15 years later, they're like, hey, this is the guy.
So then what do you say to anyone who's trying to be that person of value in their industry? Like, what is the number one key to doing that? Is there even a method, a recipe for that?
Just whatever you do and whatever field you want to get into, you just be persistent, you know what I mean? And consistent. Because I would have given up, within the first 5 years. We did shows that we lost money. Or we did parties where we we're expecting, I don't know, let's say 1,000 people and we do 200. It happened a couple times. But once you take the first hit, you're like, I don't know, like I just lost 10 grand or 5 grand. Like, should we still do this? But I kept on doing it. And then, yeah.
What kept you going?
I liked it.
You're like, this is fun.
Yeah, I liked it. You know what I mean? It was good. I treated it as a business too, right? It wasn't like, oh, I'm doing this so I can get drunk every weekend, or I'm doing this. No, it was like I'm making money out of this, and I can see this. I can scale it hopefully, and then eventually, like I said, it went from nightclubs to concerts to banquet halls to arenas, and so on.
This question is loaded, and I don't think anyone ever knows the real answer to it when they ask it. I wouldn't even know the answer for myself, but you've been at this a while, and now this is on a new. You're newer to Live Nation. I know that's like you haven't been there that long, but in general, you've been doing this a while. So right. I feel like you have a grasp on where things are going. Where do you see this industry or yourself in 10 years? Not even 10 years. I'm gonna say maybe a year, maybe 2, I can see some of our shows not only playing in theaters, arenas, but we're gonna move on to stadiums. Like stadiums being the Rogers Center or the Rogers Stadium that's being built. I can see this going from 20,000 people to 40,000 to 50,000. And you see that in like a year or 2?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that's the same for all of Canada? Is that specific to Toronto? Have you seen growth in other parts
It'll
of Canada?
start in Toronto for sure, and then it'll probably eventually, over the next 2, 3, 4 years, it'll probably get to Vancouver and stuff.
I love that. I love
look,
that so much.
Even places like Vancouver, like I've talked to local people because I'm there every so often. They're like, we used to do like 2 shows or maybe a show per year. I've already done 4 last year. You know what I mean? So I probably have another 3 to 4 this year in Vancouver specifically. So Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal. Those are like the main hubs for Latin people.
Ricky, before I let you go, I wish we had more time, and I think that in the future we need to sit down again and catch up.
For sure.
But before I let you go, what has been a highlight in your career to date?
There's a lot.
Hard to name, eh?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's more that I want to accomplish, you know what I mean? So there's a lot. I mean, one of them could have been that I saw fade literally from 0 to what he is now. I think that's one of my proud moments, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Fade was an artist that you would think, okay, he's gonna sell out a nightclub, and we're like, hey, let's just do theaters. Sold everything within 5 minutes. And then a year later, he sold the Scotiabank.
A year later is crazy.
Like literally 13 months later.
That is a good highlight.
Yeah,
I
so
agree with you.
you know, the fact that you're like, okay, let's try it out and see what happens. Sold everything, and then, okay, he's bigger now, but is he as big as Scotiabank? Let's try, and then yeah, he did it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that moment. I can't imagine how many others that are in your brain. Is there anything you're excited for this year?
Yes, but it will be announced at the end of the year for the following year.
Oh my gosh, the anticipation. So, okay, I guess I'll have to book you back in right before then so that we can break it.
Yeah,
here.
I think that moment is gonna take the whole. Look, I don't think there's an industry yet, Latin industry, but I feel like if you're gonna use the word industry, I feel like it'll take our community to a different level once we do that.
I want to know what it is so bad. That's crazy. Ricky, I'm excited. I'm excited. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit down with me. You know, I think that it's moments like this and connections like this within our community that's going to help us keep growing
For sure.
and keep leveling up. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the invite, and yeah, we'll reschedule another one for later this year.
I can't wait. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.